Well. Look what we have here. The book of Revelation. I shouldn't even have to preach on this. You guys should be experts on this by now, right? This is what we did while we were in quarantine. But there's something. There obviously, I would spend 45 minutes to an hour on like just this first reading. So there's so much that can be said. So for those that aren't familiar with this book, what we have in chapter 4 is the beginning, not the beginning, but the beginning of John's vision of this heavenly worship. And so he sees these figures, and as you know, numbers and colors, and they all mean something. So we have, for example, the 24 elders represents the 12 tribes of the Old Testament, the 12 apostles of the New Testament. Put them together, you get 24. So the elders is meant to kind of sum up all the prophets, all the faithful from both the Old and the New Testament. Then you have these 4 living creatures, which meant to represent the Gentiles. Okay, so the 4 is like the number for the world, kind of like the four regions of the world, the way they saw the world back then. And what are they all doing? They're all worshiping. Okay. So let's get into that very first line. I, John, had a vision of an open door to heaven. Just stop right there. An open door to heaven. There's so much that can be said about that. One, the first is the fact that the door to heaven is open. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. We take it for granted, 2,000 years of salvation history, 2,000 years of Jesus Christ. But that door was not always open, So go back to the Garden of Eden. What happened there? They were kicked out of the garden, and they couldn't get back in. Well, now you can get back in. The door's open. And as John is brought into that open door, he sees this worship around this throne. Okay, we don't know who's on the throne yet. Okay, we can probably take a good guess. All right, I think we'll get that in chapter 5 in tomorrow's first reading. Okay, but the 24 elders, the 4 living creatures, the Jews, the Gentiles, Old Testament, New Testament, they're all around the throne worshiping this throne and this figure who's going to be on the throne, which, spoiler alert, it's going to be this lamb. Okay, all right, it's going to be this lamb. All right, but let's tie it into our liturgy. Okay, because this is where it becomes hard. This is where Catholics lose faith. Now again, it depends on what study you look at. It depends on how they did the study. But apparently a very high percentage of Catholics don't believe in the real presence of the Eucharist. Could be true. Wouldn't surprise me, with just the poor catechesis, the last 30, 40 years, lack of faith. But the Eucharist, the real presence, okay, right there on that altar, what is happening when that Eucharist is there? The door to heaven is open. You are being inserted. God is drawing you in, okay, into the heaven to join in the worship with the 24 elders and the 4 living creatures. It's hard because our senses deceive us. Our senses tell us there's really not much going on over there. Our eyes and our ears just see, Father Miller over there holding a piece of bread. That's what our senses tell us. But faith in the divine authority of Jesus Christ, and in this book of Revelation, faith tells us that there's a lot more going there than what our senses tell us. This is why when we say, go to church, okay, and again, I think this is where we fail the people, go to church. Why don't you go to church? Okay, well, just that expression there doesn't really draw up anything, when they hear the expression going to church, they imagine sitting in a pew, sitting there for a long time, listening to a bad homily, watching other people disinterested. Okay, that's what drums up people and their emotions when they hear that expression, go to church. But with faith, with evangelization, we move past what our senses tell us and say, I am entering through that door of heaven right now. You know, heaven isn't something that we wait till we die. It begins here in the sacraments and begins right here in the Eucharist. That door is open. The 4 living creatures, the 24 elders, and all the saints, all the angels worshiping God is there. And we become a part of it right now. That's why we go to Mass. That's why it's an obligation. Because it's our one true and really right way of heavenly worship. May God bless you.